tested Abraham's faith. I want us to take out Abraham and put your name there. Because sometimes when we read the word as it was written in that day and time. And we miss the revelation of what it is that God is saying to us today. So to make it a little more practical, sometime later, God tested Karl's faith. God called. Yes, he replied, here am I. Take your son, your only son. My only son? As if the question was asked. Yes, Isaac, your only son, whom you love so much. I want you to take out Isaac's son, and I want you to think about the thing that you love the most. Be it your job, be it your money, be it your house, be it your child, be it you, be it your education. He says, I want you to take your only son, yes, whom you love so much, and I want you to go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice a burnt offering there on one of the mountains which I will show you. The next morning, Abraham got up early in the morning. Listen to that. God gives him a word, tells him, gives him instructions, says, I want you to go and I want you to sacrifice. Take that thing that you love when you go. And he's specific about where you go. He says, I want you to go to Moriah. And when you get there, I'm going to show you a mountain. 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 I'm specific about where I want you to go. But I'm going to show you one of the mountains. Mount Virginia Beach, Mount Portsmouth, Mount Charlotte, Mount Elizabeth City, Mount Western Branch, Mount Peninsula, Mount Suffolk, Mount Chesapeake. He says, I'm going to show you one of them that I want you to make your sacrifice. The next morning, Abraham got up. He didn't waste no time. God gave him a word, and he did not waste no time. He got the word last night, and he moved early the next morning. The problem is that some of us are taking too long to move. God says, I gave you instructions, but I want you to look at Abraham. Abraham moved with a sense of urgency. Why are you making me wait? He got up early the next morning. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped up wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set out for the place that God had told him about. On the 3rd day of the journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in a distance. Stay here with the donkey, Abraham told the servants, which means everybody can't go. There's only a certain distance that people who have been traveling with you are only going to be able to go, because in this next season, God says everybody can't go. They've gone with you as far as they need to go. The boy and I will travel a little further. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulder, on the child's shoulder, which means children are built to carry something, while he himself carried the fire and the knife as the 2 of them walked on together. Isaac turned to Abraham and said, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. We have the fire and the wood, the boy said, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? I got questions. I heard what you said. I see the fire and the wood, but where is the, I'm a little concerned. God, I heard you telling me to go and do these things, but I'm a little concerned. I see this and I see that, but I don't see the provisions that you said. Where are the provisions? God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son. Abraham answered. And they both walked on together. For the benefit of our guests, if you're wondering why God brought you here this morning, it wasn't necessarily about Veterans Day. He wanted to answer some questions that you had. So God told me to tell you, he says, you will see. Trust me on this one. The son is walking with the father, and the son got questions. Abraham turns to him and say, you will see. Trust me on this one. Father, we thank you for the benefit of this day. We thank you for our time here. We ask now, God, that you will bless our time together. I surrender preaching to you now. Be the voice that speaks to us, and we will be the ear to hear what thus says the Lord to the church. Transform this room from an auditorium into a classroom, that we may be students, not just hearers of the word, but doers also. In Jesus' name, amen. You will see. Trust me on this one. Auntie, I have been walking with God for a good little while now. And nobody can figure out God because he is so big that no one person can figure him out. In fact, he won't let you figure him out. And one of the things that I've discovered in my time with walking with God is that God has to speak in fragments because he is so big that we can't handle a whole conversation with him. Imagine the God of the universe. He is so large. Our ears are so small that we can only handle a certain amount of volume as it relates to us being in this room. So being that God is so huge and his voice is so powerful, that is so riveting, that any time that he says something, there's normally an echo. He normally would say something like, Moses, 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 and it echoes in the earth realm. Abraham, Abraham, Abraham. Surely, surely, surely. I believe that there is a lesson in that within itself. That anytime somebody stands on the mountaintop, we've seen it through the cough drop commercial when they holler out, oh cola, oh cola. I might not have said the word right, y'all. I might not have said the word right, but y'all get where I'm going. You can stand on the mountaintop and shout out, hello, 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 hello. And the vibration from your voice, it carries all through eternity that men miles away could even hear it. So I believe that God is so big that he speaks to us in fragments. We can't handle a whole conversation with him at one time. In fact, I believe that God speaks to us. He has been speaking to the Mount Suffolk through sermon titles. You know, I think our sermon titles is really the essence or the nut in the nutshell, what God really wants to say. And I really look forward to coming up on a Sunday and just giving you, read the scripture and tell you what God has said, and then be able to sit down and go home without explaining a whole lot of stuff in details. You know, just like today, he said, you will see, you know, trust me on this one. I don't know who he's talking to in the room, but he's saying the questions that you have been asking me, he's saying, you will see, I just need you to trust me on this one. He's going to use the text to show us the relationship between a father and a son. The father is on his way to make a sacrifice because God has asked him to do something. So I believe, Calvin, that God has been speaking to the Mount Suffolk over the last 6 months. It's been longer than that, but just so that you can hear the thread of what it is that God has been saying through sermon titles. You remember when God said, because the Bible said that God is a mystery and he speaks in codes, you know. He says, he don't let everybody know what it is that he is saying. So he's been telling us that, you know, I brought y'all here to Suffolk. I laid something in Bishop's heart for him to actually pastor the Hampton Roads area. So what he did was he broke something off in Bishop's heart and he started raising up relationships around Bishop, so that he sent Pastor Teron to Chesapeake with a part of Bishop's heart. He sent Elder Denise to Western Branch with a part of Bishop's heart. He couldn't handle it all. Bishop couldn't be in 7 places. But then too, it really wasn't Bishop. It's really the heart of God. So he ends up sending us here to the city of Suffolk. Now, I'm grateful that I get the privilege of preaching in the city that grew me up, because I served the city. I've been a barber. And of all the places that God could have sent me, he sent me not to a strange land. He sent me to a familiar land. I'm familiar with the people in the city. I'm familiar with the culture. I'm familiar with the neighborhoods. I'm familiar with the dynamics of the city. So when he sent us, he started saying, he says, Karl, I'm sending y'all there because it's a major assignment. He said, it's a major assignment. That was the sermon title about 3 months ago, Michelle. He says, it's a major assignment. I just want you to know that while you are here because I have a major assignment that I'm trying to accomplish here in the earth realm. And being that you did not recruit me, I recruited you. I had to orchestrate the universe to get minor high school students here in this room just so that their parents could come, because there is something that I desire to say to them through this vessel. He says it's a major assignment. Then he goes on to tell us, he says, I'm planning a takeover. It's almost like he was telling us, I'm telling you why I called you here, because there is something that I'm getting ready to pull off in the earth realm that eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, neither have it entered into the hearts of man, the things that God has prepared. He says, I am so strategic about what it is that I'm doing. He says, I would not have you ignorant of the enemy's devices. He says, here it is right here. He said, I'm planning a takeover. And then he said, in fact, if anybody asks you why you showed up, he says, tell them I told you to come. I told you to come. Y'all remember the sermon when God said, I told you to come? And then he told him, he said, when you come, I want you to come a certain way. Don't come in here timid. Don't come in here scared. I want you to come in here boldly. And the only way you can come in here boldly and put your request down is that you've been doing everything that I've asked you to do. Now, if you have not been doing everything that I've asked you to do, I still want you to come, but you're going to be kind of coming down. You're going to be coming like, you seen a dog, when he did something wrong to his master and all that. He already know, he did something wrong. So he treading like, but he said, I told you to come. And then he said, it's an ambassador's assignment, which means that I am calling you because I want you to be my representatives here in the earth realm. I want you to represent me. When you show up, I want them to really be able to see me. Why? Because it's a major assignment. I'm not charging everybody with this. There's a whole lot of people here on the earth that I could have chose, but I want you to be my representative. I want you to be my ambassador. I know that you're saying, well, God, I don't meet the criteria. I haven't dotted every I and crossed every T. He says, I know that, but I look beyond your faults and not only see your needs, but I look beyond your faults to see my need. I need somebody down in the earth realm, and I'm not looking for somebody who's perfect. I'm looking for somebody who is available. And then he came back the following week and said, in case you forgot, just in case you forgot of all this stuff that I've done for you, I asked you to do one thing, and you can't do that one thing. In case you forgot, I'm the one that healed you. I'm the one that delivered you. I'm the one that paid your light bill. I'm the one that kept you safe. I'm the one that kept your marriage. I'm the one that did all of these things. I'm the one that did that. I'm the one that did that, just in case you forgot. Then last week, he hit us with unexpected surprises. He says, I got an unexpected surprise. I had no idea that I would be living that sermon out in my own life, because when they nominated me to be Teacher of the Year, I wasn't even looking for that. But he said, son, when are you going to start taking the sermon titles for real? Oh, you think that when you preach, you preaching just to them. He said, but it was an unexpected surprise. I know you didn't see it on the radar. He said, I got some more unexpected surprises that are coming the way. People don't even know. There are some things that I am about to release in your life. There are some things that are on their way. It is an unexpected surprise. And then last week, I said, God, why you got to do it so unexpectedly? He said, son, because you are not the same. You are not the same. I told you last week to hit your neighbor and say, I'm not the same. I might look like you. I may sound like you. I may dress like you, but trust and believe, I am not the same. I am an atmosphere changer. I will change the environment. If you throw me in a system, I'll change the system. You are not ordinary. You are extraordinary. There is a piece of God that God has placed inside of you that he wants to release in the earth realm. Stop looking at yourself as if you are nothing. He says, no, you are more than something. I don't make nothing. I make masterpiece. He says, it took so long for you to realize that all that stuff that you went through, the ugly crooked parts of your life and all of that, he says, I beautify. Once I turn it upside down, you will start to understand what it is, why you've been going through what it was you're going through. He says, because all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And then this week, he turns around and said, okay, I know you don't believe me, but you will see. You will see. Just trust me on this one. Just trust me on this one. So God gave me 4 things. Look, this is what I learned, Lee. This is what I learned, Lee. There's not a whole lot of time, Dr. Ward, where God spoke audibly. There's only one time in the Bible that God, most of the time when God speaks, he speaks privately or personally to a person. There's only one time that I saw in the Bible. This is just me. Now, that may be some other times. I have not saw not but one time that God spoke audibly in front of everybody, and that is when he baptized his son in the Jordan, and he said this, in front of everybody, he said, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. So anytime God speaks, God speaks. He speaks privately. He speaks in certain places. There are specific places in time that God will speak. There are specific times when God will speak. Here's what I learned, though. I learned that anytime God speaks, you will see movement. In the beginning, God spoke, let there be light. In the beginning, God spoke, and he said some stuff. Let there be water. Water comes up. Let there be. Anytime God says something, you will see movement. I wonder, with as many people who are in the room who say God is speaking to them, why when people look at your life, they don't see movement? Could it be that it's not God necessarily speaking? Because anytime God speaks, there will be movement. Okay. I'm gonna build up my case. I remember when we was over at Kings Fort Middle School, and I think it was our second year in ministry moment, and God had laid on my heart, Dr. Ward, to go and start this Operation Hydration. You know, because the heat index had got up to 110 degrees within the city. And in the city, there's a whole lot of people that live in the Manor and Hoffler and Jericho. Y'all know the area. But there's a whole lot of people that didn't have transportation and had to walk all the way from where they were to social services or wherever they was going. And God told me, he says, look, what I want you to do is I want you to go and I want you to start putting water coolers on every block, so that, you know, when my people who look like people to you, but really they sheep, when my sheep is walking, you know, in the grade, in the yard, he says, I want them to be able to stop by coolers and be able to get something cool and refreshing. And we had a guest with us for the very first time. She had just heard about it, and she had just came in. I still remember her coming down the aisle, and she came down the aisle, and I gave my sermon title. She sat down, and I was telling her about the Operation Dehydration. I said, look, we're going to need coolers, blah, blah, blah. She got up and walked out. Now, as she was walking out, it messed up my mind. I'm up here trying to deliver the word, but she had just sat down, and then when I said that, she got up and walked out, and I had no idea. I thought maybe I had offended something. Well, 10 minutes later, she came back with 2 coolers. My point is that anytime God speaks, you're going to see movement. Ain't going to be no waiting around. She heard God say, you know what? The man said he's setting water coolers out in the neighborhood, and he need coolers. She got up. She ain't wait. She got up in the middle of service, got up and did what God told her to do, went to Walmart, and I can guarantee you when she went to Walmart, standing in line with 2 big coolers bigger than she was, I know somebody asked her, girl, when in the world you dressed like that, going with two coolers? She probably ain't paid them no mind. Came and laid them at the altar, because anytime God speaks, there will be movement. In fact, I believe God's speaking to somebody, saying something right now. I don't know what he's saying, but I believe God is saying something. That's just my personal belief. I believe God is saying something to somebody right now, because anytime he speaks, Kelvin, there will be movement. He says, you got to trust me on this. You'll see this. He says the Bible is a book of instructions. Y'all know we call it the book of instructions, basic instructions before leaving earth. See, when God starts speaking, things start changing. See, the word becomes, this is when you know when the word becomes alive. The word only becomes alive not when you read it. The word becomes alive when you read it and you take it inside of you and you make it applicable. You start applying it to your life. You start doing what it says. That nasty husband that you got, God says, if you do what I tell you to do, I'll change him from being nasty to being more submissive. He says, if you just do what I tell you to do, but the problem is that you won't follow my spirit, you follow in your flesh. You want to tell him something. Well, John, well, why you got to do that? Well, Barbara, why you always got to do? And it turns into this big debate or this big argument. God says, if you just do what I tell you to do, the word will do what it said it would do. I just said something. If you do what the word tell you to do, the word will do what it said it would do. I just said something. If you do what the word tell you to do, the word will do what it said it would do. It tells me that, he said, it tells me that when a man ways please the Lord, he will make your enemy be at peace with you. Listen at the first word. That's my favorite verse. I'm going to take this to the grave. That first word is when. In other words, when you decide to do what it is that I want you to do, I will make your enemy be at peace with you. I just said something. When you decide to do what I want you to do, not your mama, not your boss, not your husband, not your spouse, not even you. When you decide to please me, the problem is you've been pleasing everybody else. He says, but it's going to, in a matter of time, you'll see. Trust me on this one. You will see. Trust me. If you do what I tell you to do, he says, you will see. I want to go ahead and get to my first point. He gave me 4 things. I said, well, God, how was it that Abraham was able to move and hear your voice? He says, the first point is that, he said, the reason why, Teresa, the reason why a lot of people don't move, it's hard to hear my voice because of proximity. The reason why a lot of people don't move is because they are not in his proximity. You ain't close enough to hear his voice. He says it's about proximity. Abraham is in a place where he can hear God's voice. My question to you is, what place are you in? I love asking guys in the barbershop. Of all the stuff that they talk about, I love just asking them a pop quiz, testing their faith. Man, what's the last thing God said to you? I wonder if all 200 of us was to go to work tomorrow with the question, hey, what's the last thing God said to you? Because it's a whole lot of people would be asking you to pray for them. They're asking you that because they feel like you are in a closer proximity than they are. I told the guy, I said, man, yeah, I pray with you, pray with him and all of that stuff there. And then again, you know, months later or years later, they asked me, I want you to pray for me. I said, man, you know what? How about if I just go with you to God? Because God would love to hear from you. There's no way that I can articulate to God what you want from him better than you was, or better than you can. There's nobody who can articulate to God what I need better than I can, Kelvin. That's because I try to make it my business to stay in close proximity to him. You got to ask yourself. Church is the place wherein you're supposed to look at yourself and ask yourself, man, am I in close proximity with God? What is the last thing that God told me to do? It's going to be more than put on your blue suit. Put your brown jack pants on. Carl, put your brown shoes on. Put your brown pants on. It's going to be more than that. Because with what he's trying to do, I believe after he tell you that, I believe he gonna tell you a little bit more than that, Miss Gail. Well, since you asked me what you wanted to wear today, I'm going to tell you to wear your blue blazer, wear your brown pants, wear your brown shoes. And the reason is because I'm going to take you somewhere today. And when you get there, I want you to make a sacrifice. Make a sacrifice. Yeah, I want you to make a sacrifice. I want you to offer up something. First of all, I want you to offer up an apology to the boss for stealing time. Ooh, I'm guilty on that myself. He says, I want you to make a sacrifice. He says, it's about proximity. You can only get instructions from God, Ma, from being close to him. If we are somewhere else, way away from him, God is not going to yell from heaven, hey, Karl, I want you to go over to the school and I want you to bless 300 teachers. No, he wants you to be in proximity. And once you're in proximity, he gives you instructions with what he wants from you. It amazes me, my vet, the amount of people that don't know what their purpose is, what their call is. God says, I'm not going to tell that to anybody. I'm not going to tell you, Karl, because they hadn't asked. He says, you got to come closer. And sometimes coming closer, you can't have too many people around you, Nicole, because he wanted to tell it to you. So my first point is, it's proximity. Once you become in proximity to him, God will start talking to you and he'll start giving you instructions just like he gave Abraham. Now, the instructions that he gives, you might not like them. He says, but you got to be in proximity. Here's the second thing. He says, once I give you instructions, it's going to require participation. You got to do something. It's right here in the text. It says, Abraham, once he got his instructions, God, you want me to go and sacrifice my son? Do you know how long it took me to get him? And you want me to give him up? God, it took me 100 years to have him. I tried to have one the other way. I went out and slept with Hagar. And now you want me to give my son, my only son, my inheritance? Let me make it a little more practical. God, you know how long it took for me to get this bank account where it is? And you asking me to give it up? But what we fail to realize is that it's just a test. I just want to see if you love that more than you love me. But we can't get it out of our minds that, no, I can't give that up, God. Do you know what it means for me to give this up? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? Do you know my blood? No, how am I going to do that? He says, you'll see. You just got to trust me on this one. He says, I'm just coming to test your faith. You the one that's saying you believe in me. You the one that's saying you got confidence in me. You the one that's saying that you trust me. A faith that have not been trusted is a faith that cannot be, a faith that have not been tried is a faith that cannot be trusted. You are the one that's saying you trust me. You are the one that said you believe in me. You are the one that's saying you committed to me. And I'm asking you, give me the thing, make a sacrifice on the thing that you love the most. He says a test. He says the same as I'm willing to show you that I'm a man that will not lie. He says, I want to be able to do the same thing with you. I want to see if you're a man or woman that will not lie. And we tell people, everything that I got belongs to God. Y'all better stop telling that, because God is saying, oh my God, did you hear that? She said everything that she got belongs to me. I'm going to try that, because if it's mine, I got a right to ask for it. He said, this is relationship. Compare me to, just like you compare to somebody else. Put me on the same spectrum, even though you can't put me on the same spectrum. Let's make this relational. Because relationship's supposed to be two ways. He said, you say it's mine? I know it's mine. Because the word says that the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. All of it belongs to me. But somewhere in your mind, you think it's yours. Because I've made you stewards of it, you feel like it's yours. If I told you to give the car to somebody, would you give the car to somebody and you make the payments on it? Can you imagine what it does in the kingdom to know that I just got this car, I'm making the payments on it, and then God steps to you and say, I want you to go and give it to the man across the street? What? No, that ain't God. That ain't God. Why would he have me making payments on a car and give it to somebody else? Let alone, why would he let me get a house and then tell me to decorate it and then tell me, let somebody else stay there? See, that's the kind of movement that God's trying to do, Reverend Dr. Ward. He wants to see, are you willing to do that? I can imagine somebody being homeless. God forbid any of us, all of us are like one paycheck, not alone 2 paychecks away from being homeless. Think I'm lying, miss a payment. I can imagine somebody taking God at his word, Kelvin, going to do what it is that he tell him to do. God, this don't make sense that I got to get my car to somebody across the street and then I got to make payments on it. I can see God saying, you'll see. I know it don't make sense, but you'll see. Trust me on this one. You might not know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing. All I need you to do is be obedient. All I need you to do is to make the sacrifice. But the problem that I'm having with my people is they not making sacrifices, they making excuses. Why they can't do it? He says it requires participation. If we participate, get in the proximity of where God is, God will start telling us to do some stuff that's not foreign to us. It don't make sense. And God will remind you, I'm not a God that makes sense. I just want to see if you trust me enough to do what it is that I tell you to do. I participate in a whole lot of stuff that you do. But can you participate in some of the stuff that I do? He says, so it's about participation. He says, but look, I'm going to tell you something. It ain't just about participation. He says it's about proclamation. Listen at the story. The son walking with his father. He says, Dad, I see the fire in the wood, but I don't see the sheep. The father turns around and say, my God will supply. All God is saying that when you participate, all I need you to do is just keep saying, I don't know how it's going to work out, but God will supply. God will supply. Easy instructions. Your instructions is just keep saying, God will supply. I'm going to get my car away. I'm going to get my house away. I'm going to get this money away. I'm going to get my shoes away. I'm going to get this dress away. God going to supply. I don't know how he going to do it. God going to supply. I don't know how he going to figure it out. God will supply. The best time that I found out when God is at his best, Kelvin, is when we don't have nothing. I remember this. I paid child support for years and never get a check. First check I got, was $4,000. I told my baby, look, don't spend it. I knew that the people at the place had made a mistake. And we're not going to spend this. I just want to look at it. Did my wife obey? Did not. By the grace of God, it was authentic. It was right. But then another check came in that was bigger than that. I think it was like $10,000. I wasn't used to having that kind of money, Mom. So I told her, don't spend it. And she started spending it, and I got within myself. Because I've been without money for so long. And now that I got it, I want to hoard it. To the point where I would go to the barbershop and I would steal from myself and hide money from her. Because man, here's an announcement, here's the money. You ain't gonna be able to stop it because God cultured them that way. That's why he called them females. There's a price, it's a fee. He says you have to start proclaiming God gonna supply. God gonna provide. If he tell me to give this away, he gonna give me another one. If he asks me for my son, I'm going to give him my son. Abraham had a mind made up. If you notice, he didn't even say anything to his wife because his wife would have tried to talk him out of, well, babe, look, God told me, and this is what I'm learning. This is what I'm learning. This is what I'm learning. I ain't asking men to keep nothing from their wives, but I'm learning through Abraham because I believe the Bible is a book of instruction and it teaches us, some things you can't tell your wife because your wife will be like, what, you going to take KJ? Well, I'll be daggone it, you are. And that's going to cause conflict between me and her, and not just between me and her. Now I got conflict between me and God because God is saying, what did I tell you to do? I didn't tell you to tell your wife. But anyway, you got to be kept. Proclamation, you got to say, God gonna provide, God gonna provide, God gonna provide. To make it simple, Kelvin, God is saying, I'm telling you, I'm getting ready to test everybody in here. That's why I brought you here. You are in a classroom. He telling you, you got an exam coming up. And he ain't telling you the date. He says, I'm coming to you, and I'm coming to you asking you to make a sacrifice. And a sacrifice is something that's going to hurt you, Calvin. It's going to make you ask questions. He's telling you, I'm telling you, I'm going to come to you and ask you for a sacrifice. And I'm telling you, what I'm asking you to give up, just keep saying, God gonna provide. God gonna provide. God gonna provide. God gonna provide. I don't know how he gonna do it, but God gonna provide. God gonna provide. I would be without a son. I ain't gonna have an inheritance. Who am I gonna leave my stuff with? God said, well, you'll see. Trust me on this. I'm asking you for your trust. Before this year is out, I'm gonna ask you for something. He says, what I'm gonna ask you for, it doesn't compare to the sacrifice that I've already made. I made the biggest sacrifice that there was. My son sacrificed his life so you don't have to sacrifice yours. So he says, proclamation. He says, you'll see. Trust me on this one. He says, if you trust me on this one, he says, look at the text. Abraham had so much confidence that when he went up to carry it out, God said, that's enough. I'm convinced. He says, I've seen your commitment in that there is nothing that you will withhold from me. And a lot of us are still withholding. Now, my prayer this morning is for you to go to God and come clean with Him. God, I don't know what you're going to be asking me for. But God, when that moment comes, I want to pass this test. Because when you pass test, you get elevated. You go to another level. But when you don't, it's a retest. I believe God brought us here to put us in an academic environment just so that He can make a comparison to how He operates. He says, I'm letting you know what I'm getting ready to do. I got you in front of the teacher of the year. He letting you know. You will see. He says, trust me on this. He hoping that husband and wife will go home and have a conversation and say, you know what, the day was different. I don't know if it's true or not. But he said, trust him on this one. Let's just see. He says, if you let me see that you're willing to do it, I'll let you see what I have for you. He says, the problem that I got with my kids, as much as they have already seen me do, babe, they still don't trust me. As much as they have already seen me deliver them through, and some of them I'm still carrying them through, they don't even know how they making it. They still don't trust me. It's easy for me, and I'm out of time. It's easy for me to give God the $38.79 that I got in the bank. What is that going to do? But some of us, we'll hold on to that. Well, all I got is $38.79. God like, okay, if that's all you got, why is it that you can't release that and just bring it down to zero? Because by the end of the week, it's going to be in zero anyway. In fact, it ain't just going to be in zero. It's going to be negative $58.72 because you done overspent. And then you're going to be calling me with your prayer life. He said, okay, you will see. Trust me on this one, you will see. My closing remark is, for those of you who are a part of the Mount, if you look at the turning point of Bishop and Elder's life, Bishop would tell you he was already broke. It wasn't until the Sunday that Elder got up, brought her purse, and dumped the whole purse on the altar. Now, I'm not telling nobody to do that. I'm just giving you an illustration. Because all of us don't view money the same. All of us don't view our house the same. Some of us view our house like it is. You got to take your shoes off. In fact, no, don't take your shoes off. Take your socks off. No, in fact, did you take a bath before you come? Because some of us value our house like that. Some of us value our cars like that, wherein we got 5 and 6 cars and know people who are struggling that don't have a car, and we won't give them one. God is saying, can't you make a sacrifice? Teresa, he said, I'm doing something. He said, we got less than 2 months in this year. Watch what I do. And you get the privilege of being a part of it. And I know some people say, you know, preaching is a hoax and all, whatever it is that they think. Look, you got to wrestle that ideology out with you and God. All I know is that this brother is persuaded that whatever God asks for, as silly as it sounds, he doing it. I'm out of time, but ain't out of word, y'all. If you are here and you don't know what God is saying to you or what your purpose is, I want to partner up with you this morning and pray and go to God with you. And we don't leave his presence until he tell us what your purpose is. Because it's not until you start walking in your purpose, what he created you to do, you will not be fulfilled. It's going to always be an emptiness, a longing. When you start walking in what God told you to do, every time you do it, it's going to feel good. It's going to make you want to do it again. And it doesn't matter what it is if it's no more than making sweet potato jacks. When you make a jack and you give it to somebody and they sit down in front of you and they be like, this jack is good. Well, that does something to you and it makes you want to make another one. Or you think that one was good. Let me show you this sweet potato jack. Let me show you these apple jack. Because you are now starting to walk in purpose. And then when somebody move in your neighborhood, you ain't paying no bills. You taking pies over there and you taking cakes over there. Because it's the fulfillment. God's saying you're walking in purpose now. If what you are doing does not fill you or give you some hope or inspiration to keep doing it, you are not doing what God asked you to do. I just want to go with you to God and say, God, as you already know, I'm doing what you asked me to do. Now, I don't know if I'm meeting the bar, but you know I'm doing it in the best of my ability. But look, I got my sister right here. She don't really know what it is that you want her to do. Now, you told me that if anything that we ask, believe, we shall receive it. Now, I'm asking you that you can come and help my sister. Look, yep, she read it. Yeah, I know it. And look, Jesus, I'm talking to you because I know you on the right side. Yeah, she did something last night. I know that guy's at the house. You know, she ain't married to and all that. But look, you said you would make intercessors for her. Can you talk on her behalf to say, God, you know what? The boy is right. The boy is right. You know, Karl down there trying to do what I asked him to do. Can you look beyond her fault? I believe God will release somehow purpose to you. He'll reveal it to you. So if you're here, you don't know what your purpose is, you ain't the only one. Just meet me down here at the altar. Now, you're going to have to deal with the fear. There's nobody who was sit here in the earth realm that did not have an assignment or purpose on their life. If so, why would he birth you, put you in the family that he put you in, and then bring you here this morning? He says, I put you there for my good pleasure. I saw that the earth needed a Marvette. I saw that the earth needed a Anderson. I saw that the earth needed a Brandon. I saw the earth needed a Donnell. Now, whether Donnell, Angie, all of them know what they're doing, he says, if you come, you'll see. Trust me on this one. So if you're here and you don't know what your purpose is, I just want to come down to the altar, stand in agreement with you. No shame, no stress, strain, or struggle. Now, I know all of us are sitting in church lying right now, in God's presence, and he's telling you, if you don't know what your purpose is, he's saying, come down. Those are instructions, y'all, that you got to be in close proximity. He says, I can't make it no plainer than that. Every last one of you, I got you, God. He said, every last one of you here gonna pass, gonna die. And every last one of you in here gonna come before me at the seat of judgment. If you think I'm lying, he said, you'll see. Trust me on that one. It's an insult to God to come in his presence when he asks for something and you do not respond. Praise team comes up this morning and say, my response is, woo. He says, I can't make it no plainer than that. Early the next morning, Abraham got up. He says, why do y'all make me wait? Everybody want me to wait on them, but then don't nobody want to wait on me. They make me wait. When I retire, who says you're going to retire? He says, the moment that you hear my voice, harden not your heart. I can't come down from heaven, so I have to step inside of somebody. I got to make sure that I'm clean every week. You know what? When I'm on my Facebook page and some of those women in bathing suits and all of these tight spandex on, I got to pass that. I can't let that intimidate or get in my mind. Because when I fill myself up with that, I minimize the ability for God to come inside of me and speak. God, we thank you for those who are at the altar. Father, I thank you for their desire to want to know. God, you told us not to be hearers of the word, but be doers. And God, I thank you for these responders who are in proximity to receive instructions. So God, I stand in agreement with them that you will reveal to them in a major way, that they will know without a shadow of a doubt what their call is, what their assignment is, what their expectations is that you have for them. God, and I thank you for the lives that are attached to them. Thank you for their sacrifice. God, I thank you for their participation. God, and I pray right now that when they leave this altar, if there's any questions that they may have, If there are any questions that anybody around them may have, that you would give them the proper response. That God will provide. That God will provide. And God, as an act of their obedience, I pray that you will release the promises and the provisions, just as you did with Abraham. God, you told us through this sermon title, you will see. Karl, trust me on this one. My vet, trust me on this one. Young lady, trust me on this one. Calvin, trust me on this one. Doris, trust me on this one. Brandon, trust me on this one. Cake maker, trust me on this one. Young man, trust me on this one. Young lady, trust me on this. He says, trust me on this. Baby girl, trust me on this. Watch what he does. Now I went to him, who is able to keep us from falling and present us faultless before his presence with exceedingly great joy. To the only wise God be glory and majesty, dominion and power. He says, you will see in the city. You will see in the fields. You will see when you come, and you will see when you go. Trust me on this one. In Jesus' name, amen. Can we celebrate God? Oh, we can do better than that, y'all. Can we celebrate God? Lieutenant Hill, can we take a picture with all of the cadets before they leave? Trust me on this one.